All right. All right, good morning. We will now call to order the Monday, December 15th, 2025 regular town council meeting. If you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Up first on the agenda is an RDC presentation from Deputy Mayor Justin Hage.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Good morning. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the activities of the Redevelopment Commission in 2025. I wanted to say first, thank you so much for the members of the RDC who serve our town. Darren Kittner serves as the president. Evan Norris, who's not here today, is on your behalf from the town council. We also have Kent Ezra, a local business owner, and then we have Ryan Vaughn, David Rosenberg, and then Katie Eshelman on behalf of the school corporation. And then also Zach Lutz really serves a key role in terms of staffing that commission and really being a workhorse in terms of the preparation for those meetings. So, are you guys able to pull up the presentation? Thank you. I just wanted to start by going over briefly some of the activities in Creekside Corporate Park this year. Fru's vision is going to be a ophthalmology and a second stage of an eye surgery center. That closed at the very beginning of this year. Construction is well underway, and I think that is in the framing process, and I think we'll see opening of that in 2026. Kreider & Kreider, which is a company that does excavation and earthwork, is going to be opening their corporate offices. That closed at the end of 2024. They are still in the process of clearing the site. Obviously, we're coming into winter here, so I think construction on that will really begin in earnest in the first part of 2026. Exclusive Auto Sports will be building on Lot 7. They closed middle part of this year, and I think they're still in some planning process. And again, I think construction will really begin in a serious way in the beginning part of next year. It was very exciting. Intelligent Living Solutions actually had their groundbreaking on December 4th. As many of you know, and I think for the benefit of the public, this is really a great story for the town of Zionsville. Literally, a business started in his garage based on home automation, and really moving more into the corporate space now as well. Moved into Z-Works, and then actually took over all of the Z-Works space there on Cedar Street, and is now building a building in Lot 9 along 106th Street there in Creekside Corporate Park. So very exciting for us in the town. Lot 3 will be a multi-tenant medical building that is set to close probably in the early part of 2026. And then in terms of activities related to the RDC and bonding, Holiday Farms and Henke Development Group issued bonds relative to the commercial section of Holiday Farms earlier this year in June. And then other projects that the RDC engaged in, I think that were important, and I wanted to just highlight briefly, was the hotel study was commissioned. I think this is an exciting opportunity for developers and landowners to think about options for hotels in our town. This really gave an overview of essentially the market drivers of demand, what the existing supply is, and gave some general recommendations related to options. The options that were suggested, the recommendations were an upscale boutique hotel, in the range of about 80 to 120 rooms. And I think one really important part that also came from that, and I think we all probably know this, is that there's a lack of meeting space here in the town of Zionsville. So that was another thing that I think was recommended, somewhere in the 7,000 to 10,000 square foot range. And that was based on some important meetings. The consultant came to town and met with a number of corporate partners that are here in Zionsville and immediately around Zionsville that are really looking for meeting space on a regular basis. And then the other project I wanted to highlight was the 420 South Main, which is generally known as the Sitco lot. There will be an investment on behalf of the RDC to help support development there. That is a site that is sort of physically constrained, and then also, wanting to make sure that the construction there is of the character of the village. There will be an incentive provided. There's a development agreement that's sort of in the drafting phase right now and should be ready here in the early part of next year. Just a brief overview here of the allocation areas in the town of Zionsville. Happy to answer any questions, but obviously the Zionsville EDA is the primary one. Creekside is starting to really have a lot more increment as time goes by. If you'll notice that the Zionsville EDA actually expires in 2030, but I think what we'll see as that starts to expire here in the next 4 years, that Creekside will have a lot more AV coming online as we see much more construction there, as I just described a couple of minutes ago. And then moving briefly to the budget, this is just an overview of the beginning balances, revenues, appropriations, and end-of-year balances for each of the allocation areas across the town of Zionsville. And then lastly, the major investment from an infrastructure perspective from the Zionsville EDA will be infrastructure improvements in the village that we discussed a couple of meetings ago. So there'll be a contribution from the downtown TIF or the Zionsville EDA to help support those improvements and that infrastructure there, both pedestrian and vehicular. And happy to answer any questions.
Justin, I just had a question.
Yes,
You
sir.
mentioned the 420 South Main project. If that development agreement does not, if you guys don't see eye to eye on it for whatever reason, does the land and the money both come back to the town of Zionsville? Like the land that's being given and the money that's being given, does that come back to the town of Zionsville?
So the money has not been transferred as of yet, so it would still be retained by the Zionsville EDA. And then in terms of the land portion, and I think we'd have to discuss that, but there wouldn't necessarily be the need for the land swap that was discussed previously. So I think there might still be the opportunity, depending if there's future opportunities for development, but there wouldn't necessarily be a need for the transfer of the land.
Okay.
Yeah, my question actually had to do with the traffic patterns that we're considering.
Yes.
That I don't think we've finally made a decision on, because that, I would think, would impact that land at 420 South Main as well. Is that part of the decision-making, like how much land's actually available?
I think, as we discussed in that meeting a couple of meetings ago, we have decided. I think there was maybe a little bit of confusion that the various scenarios that were presented at that meeting were really to show the optimum solution being the one that was selected, as opposed to them being still up for debate or something we're still choosing between. And just to make sure I understand, what was the second part, or what was the crux of your question?
I didn't know that we had made a final decision on the scenarios. Is that?
Oh, I think the
Scenario seven.
presentation, that regardless of the scenario, the project's being completed, it's moving forward. It's just a function of whatever design the administration ultimately ends up going with. And I'm hoping that continued feedback from residents will be taken into consideration. But as it relates to whether or not it's going on, it's
Sure,
going
yeah,
on.
I knew it was going on. I'm speaking of kind of the one-way north-south split.
Yes.
That I think Scenario 7 had versus Scenario 6, which was a two-way leaving Zionsville Road. That obviously would impact that land. I did not know. That is a final decision. It's
That's correct, yes. And to President Plunkett's point, and I think the mayor will speak about it as well, but we did have a very productive public information session on December 10th. We'll be holding another one on January 13th, and we'll also have lots of other opportunities for public input as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from councilors? Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Up next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments from councilors?
I have corrections. November 3rd, page 96. With President Plunkett saying, so he's getting cash for the and as well, it should be land.
What was that? Could you say that again?
Should be land.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Mike.
Land. And then about halfway north, it says Jeff, it should say Jaffe.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Jaffe, Jaffe.
And what page was that?
Same page.
Okay, thank you.
I can send this down to you, see though. And then November 17th.
Did you bring it in?
about 6 from the bottom. It says and, it should say end. No big deal, but keeping them correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from counselors? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion
Move to approve the consent agenda?
with the amendments offered by
Correct.
Counselor Sampson. I got a first from Vice President Burke. All those, or a second
second.
from Counselor Sampson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Up next on the agenda,
Not here.
I'm sorry, no opposed, 6 in favor, no opposed, sorry about that. Up next on the agenda is the request to speak. Amy, I have 2 requests to speak, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so we have 2 requests to speak on agenda items. If you would, when you come up, please state your name, address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. When we get to 2 minutes, I'll just kind of raise a finger to let you know you have 1 minute left, and we'll stop at 3 minutes. So first on the agenda is Randall Collins.
Randall Collins, 961 Starkey Road. I basically just want to make sure that you guys all received my letter from December 1st. And if you had any questions, my problem is 3 minutes is not going to basically go through everything that needs to be gone through. We've had years to get to this problem, and I believe that, I'm just asking to basically stop the vote today so we have more discussion for the public, and just basically go forward like that instead of pushing this through. I think this is a very important decision. There's other things that need to be considered that in all the research that we have done does not look like that has really been considered. There's a lot of assumptions that were made that, I basically think that we should slow this down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, up next is Ken Stark. And I would say for the record, Randall, we do have your letter to the council.
Good morning, Council. Ken Stark, I live at 11920 East 200 South, Zionsville. I wanted to speak on the consideration of an ordinance approving a letter agreement between the town of Zionsville and Citizens Energy. As mentioned, we live at 11920 East 200 South, and will be directly impacted by sewer transfers. For a little background, we were recently sued by Hamilton Southeastern Utilities so that they can put a sewer easement on our property and run a line with an estimated start date of May 2026. I think this is to serve Bradley Ridge and the recently approved Maple Lane Club. To say this was a frustrating process that caused great distress is putting it mildly. We learned very quickly that homeowners have little to no ability to improve the situation or original offer, and at the end of the day, it just made more money for all the lawyers involved. We left the process feeling undervalued and taken advantage of. We encourage you to vote no to this transfer due to the lack of information and impact to the resident homeowners. We need more specifics around impacted properties, timeline, scope of impact to the properties. What's the size of pipes? What's the size of easements? Location of waste treatment plants and methods of installation? What's their long-term vision, and how would that benefit Boone County versus the impact to our residents? This is the time to understand a higher level of detail prior to granting a blanket approval for our community. We just recently completed the comprehensive plan for development for Zionsville. We took a lot of time and effort and involvement from the community, and I would just ask you that you take the same time to understand what's the overlay of utilities, sewer, electric, what have you, that overlays that comprehensive plan to best serve Zionsville. So again, I'd encourage you to vote no, or at least ask for more time to understand the impact. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. All right. Up next on the agenda is first item of old business. This is the consideration of an ordinance approving a letter of agreement between the town of Zionsville and Citizens Energy. This is a second reading. This is ordinance 2025-27, continued from our November 17, 2025 meeting.
Jason, I think we skipped over mayor administration update,
No,
and I think it's not on your sheet.
not on my vote sheet.
Yeah.
All right, so up next will be the mayor administration update.
Thank you, President Plunkett. I appreciate it. I just have a short update today. And the first has to do with the new firefighters that have been approved by the pension board. The pension board met on December 1st and approved 5 new firefighter applications as well as 2 alternates. After the applications are approved by the state pension board, they'll begin training on January 5th with a plan to be in the firehouses by early July. The 5 new hires fill the 3 new positions created in the 2026 budget, as well as 2 others that have been created through attrition. Next, I received a letter from INDOT dated December 1st that is in your packet, indicating that the department denied Zionsville's initial request for community crossings grant money in 2026. Our ask was for matching funds for 7 road projects totaling about $985,000. Now, we have been successful the past few years, but this year the state legislature committed far less money to the community crossings program, and our application got put to a lower tier. Now, this is not a reflection on our processes or anything that we've done. Other nearby municipalities got the same message. But after speaking with the program administrator, I learned that we may still be in the running for some funding after the first of the year based on bids for other projects coming in lower than expected, and also our bids going out early enough for consideration. So we will make sure that we are on top of this. We will comply with those compressed timelines, and we may still get some funding through the program in 2026. I just want to assure all of you that our administration will not let this fall off the radar. We're going to stay on this to get the funding that we can get from community crossings in 2026. The next item I have is the downtown infrastructure project. We had about 75 people come out to our first open house regarding the infrastructure project at Main, Sycamore, and First. Now, this was not a presentation. This was an opportunity to listen to people's thoughts and what's most important to them. And not surprisingly, the main issue was pedestrian safety, and the second main issue was the aesthetics of the project, and also a desire from local businesses to keep Main Street accessible during construction. Turned out to be a very constructive conversation, I think. The engineers got some good feedback as the plan moves forward. And I do want to mention that there is another opportunity here. The next session in person will be January 13th from 5 to 7 p.m., and we will be sure to notice that as much as we can on our communication channels. And there's also a website where people can take a look at the project planning so far and also offer thoughts that they have online. And then finally, since this is the last meeting of 2025, I just wanted to take a moment. I think I would be remiss if I did not express my thanks to all of you for your collegiality over the past year. I think the time and effort that you all put into this is something maybe the public doesn't always see, and I think the town is certainly better for it. And I also think that people should know that we are communicating with one another. I think we're communicating well, and while we don't always agree, the dialogue is respectful and constructive, and good things are happening in Zionsville because of it. So I want to thank all of you as the year comes to a close, and look forward to a very prosperous and collegial 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. John, real quick, Mr. Mayor, the community crossings grant funding that was denied, when did we find out about that being denied?
The letter was sent on December 1st.
Okay.
It was a short, as you saw, a one-paragraph letter.
Okay.
On that same topic, was that funding contemplated in the budget for next year? In other words, by losing that, is it going to put constraints on us in any way?
Yes. If we get no funding from community crossings, we'll be doing fewer road projects next year. We applied for matching funds for 7 road projects, and that would be about half of the funding. So we're looking at 3 or 3.5 road projects in 2026, if nothing else is forthcoming from the state. And it's really just a function of the state legislature chose to put fewer dollars into that pot than they have in previous years.
Would you think that there might be additional funds? You mentioned that at the end, that there was the potential that there might be other funds that we would be
Well,
eligible
if
for?
the projects that were approved, if the bids come in lower than expected, there will be some additional money in that pot. And I think it's NDOT's desire to make sure that all that money flows out of the pot to the local municipalities. So if there is extra after the approved projects are bid out, then there might be some to distribute to other projects. They've asked us to move up our timelines, getting our bids out, not to sign the bids, but move up the timeline so that we are ready to take advantage of that if there is that opportunity. And we will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for councilors? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I do want to make note, just the last vote was 6 in favor, 0 opposed. At 7:49, Councilor Norris is at the meeting, so we have all 7 councilors present, so glad you're safe.
Yes, thank you.
Up next on the agenda is first item of old business. This is a consideration of an ordinance approving a letter of agreement between the town of Zionsville and Citizens Energy. This is a second reading. It's ordinance 2025-27, continued from our November 17th, 25 meeting. We have representatives from Citizens, Steve Crone from Ice Miller here. If there are questions from councilors, I think before we get into this particular agenda item, there's a couple of things I just want to get some clarity on. I know that many on this council have had conversations with representatives from Citizens, the administration, other folks that have interest in this as well. We're in a little bit of a tricky situation. I don't know, Heather, maybe to kind of back up, do we have the ability, I know plan commission items that come to us have to take action within 90 days. Is there a restriction on other items that come to the town council? Like, are we
No.
in a time crunch here?
We are not, yeah. So if you're asking, could you continue this
Yeah.
again for additional dialogue? Yes, you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I hate to have, you guys keep coming back here, but I think in order to get this right, I think we probably need a little bit more time. And you'll see counselors shaking their head, yes. I think there's a lot of questions that we have, representation needed, just to kind of get to the bottom of this and just understand what our role really is in this situation. I would say to the public who have asked questions via email, even public comment today, this does not, I think it's important to remember that representatives who have committed to serving development in that area will still have the opportunity to serve that development, those developments in that area, regardless of this. And they made that clear to us in the beginning, that would just be used or be done by a third party or by hiring out and having someone else do. So if HSE continues to maintain the service district here, they'll just contract Citizens to come in and do it. The cost certainly could be unique cost. But I do think, as I mentioned in the first meeting when this came up, like I think this is an interesting scenario. I don't want this to be another airport situation. I don't want this to be another Anson situation where we just kind of look the other way and allow something to go through without really vetting. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of or supporting it or in favor of it or opposition to it. I'm just saying I really think we need to think this through. So, any questions from councilors? I mean, as you could tell, I'm leaning towards continuing this to the first meeting in January. Certainly open to comments or questions from councilors.
No, yeah, sorry, I meant to borrow Heather's mic. No, I'm in complete agreement. At this point, I think it would be a disservice to the citizens and to Citizens, HSE, and any other parties if we didn't sit here and take our time to adequately go through this, consider this, make sure that we're crossing all of our legal boxes, checking all those boxes, because it is a unique situation, right? And I think even some of the utility lawyers in the situation may not. I'm sure the utilities lawyers understand it, but for us laymen that don't understand this or don't work in this role are kind of stuck in this situation. So I'm in full support of a continuance at this point. Let's get all the information that this body needs and proceed with a well-informed decision on this.
Any other questions or comments from councilors?
We're sitting here in the room and we're, facing the public right now as well. And I guess, are there any questions that this council has for any of these parties involved that we could ask publicly? I guess I've been presented with lots of information and lots of scenarios with regards to how this can pan out, but seems like everybody's here this morning. We've gotten letters from, I don't know if we call them remonstrants or people that want us to deny this, but as we, I guess we're here. We're here now, and I'm not saying vote on it today. In fact, I'm okay with pushing it out again, but we have several parties in the room to this, and I just feel like I don't really have any questions personally, but are there any other questions that this council would like to ask of? We have our attorney here that we, with Ice Miller, I believe. I'm not sure who or which one that is. And then we have citizens, HSC representatives, and as I look at this one of the biggest things that has stood out to me is how does Zionsville develop with I'm sorry, not HSC, with citizens being in the driver's seat of this utility installation or the control of it. And I think I really like to understand, moving forward, if this were to transfer, what are our levers as the town council to throttle development as we move forward? And I think that's what our constituents in this area are concerned about is this opening up the Pandora's box where, hey, the pipe's in there, we can develop this whole area? And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the case really is, it falls back on this council of how we throttle the development in the future. So as I sit here, I just wonder if there's any other questions that we can ask publicly or you're willing to ask publicly to try and understand this, and because everybody's here. So I guess I need reaffirmation that that's the case, that if HSC transfers this to citizens, this doesn't mean that this area turns into subdivisions and doesn't turn into some huge industrial commercial use areas. But I'm not saying it can't do that, but it's still up to this council as we develop this ground into the future. So that's just my question. I mean, we've got a lot of great requests, but I think the main thing is people don't want this to turn into, the Wild West of development, because that's Perry Township is the Wild West here in Zionsville. This is the Wild North. So that's my question. So
Yeah, I think the great points, Councilor Melton. I think two things I would point out. One is the only mechanism to control the development is utility and zoning, and we're working through the zoning or working through the comprehensive plan, working through that process now. And certainly, if this gets approved, it's not like pipe goes in the ground tomorrow, right? But there is the reality of the two mechanisms. You're talking about levers and mechanisms. One is utility, the other is zoning. And so those are things we need to think through. I think the other elephant in the room is you mentioned we have our attorneys here. We don't have representation on this. And that's something that, as I've tried to navigate these last 45 days or so in attempting to find out who we can and can't lean on for counsel, I think what we find is that the folks on this docket have a pretty large reach. So it's kind of difficult to find representation that doesn't have some conflict or some engagement or involvement. I am in the process of attempting to do that. I haven't shared that with anyone publicly. I haven't even shared that with Heather, but understanding Heather's situation as it relates to her firm representation of citizens, we don't, in fact, have counsel here. So that's been kind of the other reason that I think we need to get some additional help here, so that we can answer all the questions that you have with legal authority and background that we just simply don't have right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that, for me, I've been trying to lean into knowing all about the different details and understanding the difference between IURC, IDEM control, reading into the ordinance and seeing that part of it does specify that we are encouraging the mayor to give up any Plan B or backdoor opportunity if it's not just throttling development, but also having an accelerator as well if there happens to be some slowdown where maybe citizens couldn't do a project at the moment that we have need for a project. Right now, there is a difference in the IURC-led citizens and the IDEM-regulated TRICO, and that's been coming up in conversations. And for that, then I get confusion. And when I looked for who am I supposed to get clarity on, I've asked, do we have a utility study in this area? Do we have someone that I could gain confidence from rather than my own personal opinion? We don't. And we don't put stop signs in Zionsville without a traffic study. So I have that basis of questioning happening, and therefore I am also on board with continuing this topic. But I am firm in that I need guidance and not just anecdotal experience. I think it all ties into, if we're going to do this, let's make sure we're doing it right. I also have been someone who has listened to the mayor say, if only we had a time machine, we could go back and change a few decisions. I don't want someone saying that about me in 10 years. So it's an exhaustive search for details and reasoning and understanding, but I have to go to sleep with my vote at the end of the day. And that's where I'm not ready to make a decision. And if I have to, if I'm pressed, then it has to be a no. So that's where I am. And I appreciate that Jason is attending to the detail of being represented. I do think that that is important. I think independence is very key in that, and that does take Heather out. And I'm not sure who is the utility expert that isn't representing one of the utilities in the discussion is kind of key.
Any other questions or comments from counselors?
No, my only question being that if we are inclined to do a continuance, are we inclined to do this, a continuance to the next meeting, or would we think till the mid-January meeting?
Because we have a mid-January meeting.
Okay,
To February.
to February. I don't know how that, if that disrupts anyone's timelines
I mean,
or.
we've never really done a continuance without putting a date on there. Can you just continue and then notify whether or not we have what we need at some point, or?
I mean, I think for the public's transparency, like typically we leave it on under old business and then we just continue it again at the next meeting. I think for the individuals involved and for the public as well, if you wanted to say we're going to leave it on the agenda because we're still considering this matter, but we're not going to actually, it's likely we'll continue it till the following meeting, that would be a better way of handling it. I don't like to usually take things off unless we've had some definitive decision, because the public needs to be put on notice that this is still continued discussion.
Mr.
I
President,
mean, where are we going to get the additional information
Yeah.
is key. We're not going to get it in the next 2 weeks.
that was going to be my question. Do you have any sense, Mr. President, as to when we might be able to secure outside legal counsel? Are you any closer after having 45 days of search?
As of last Thursday, I have 3 individuals that I'm communicating with about next steps. Clearing conflict, making sure, they're not in the situation that other counsel has been, so. Yep. And then I don't know, from there procedurally, I want us to get all the information, or all the questions that we have. I know that counselors have been really good about, sharing thoughts and questions that they would have. I want to make sure we get all that information to the attorneys and to council so that we can address everything that we need to address. So some of them are very, similar to Counselor Melton's concerns. Some of them are more, more along the lines of the what-ifs of the situation,
President Plunkett, if Counselor Sampson brings up a point about things that we hear about in the background, which is IDEM versus IURC, and I understand those are two separate entities and regulatory paths, I guess, and I'm just curious, if when you find your person that's going to help us with this, I'd like to know more about those specifically as to what each one implies, better, worse, up or down, for the town of Zionsville moving into the future. So I think that's you bring up a point about the regulatory side of things, and I don't have that understanding enough to make a vote today myself. However, again, if there's any other questions, like I said, we have a room full, and I think it's great to have all this engagement. So, I would ask that you kind of help us figure that out. That's what I want to see, so I can understand, so I can make my decision based on that information. So, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, I think in full transparency even to the petitioners, I guess, the questions that I have and that I've been presented with from this council and members of the public, I understand for lack of a better term, simplicity of a transaction. The HSE owns this particular sewer district, or controls the sewer district. Citizens wants to buy the CTA. So we know what happens if Citizens buys the CTA. We know what happens if Citizens doesn't buy the CTA, if we don't allow it, and then HSE contracts everything through Citizens to get done as well. So all of that is known. The question that I have, and that I think many others on the council have, is what if, we're being brought in here because we have to approve it because we let go of that CTA in 2004, 2014, whatever year it was on the document. So we're brought back in for a reason, and my question is, what's that reason? And what if we choose not to? What if we have an administration who decides, I know that this is certainly not the case at this point, but what if we have an administration that decides they want to go up there and service it? They want to go build a wastewater facility treatment, put in an EDA bond for it, pay for it. What if we want to do the same thing with water? I know that when I have that communication with the deputy mayor, he tells me IDEM may not even approve it, sensitive to that. I don't know what the process is to ask for the CTA to come back to us. I don't know how much we would anticipate in the cost to the town to have that come back to us. I don't know what the benefit to the town is to have that come back to us. So that's where I say I'm not saying that I'm supportive of or not supportive of. What I do think is this town council doesn't have a council attorney representation, legal representation that can share that information with us independently. We certainly get it from you guys. We get it from HSE. We understand that there's a lot of different factors there. We get it from the town's perspective as well. But what we don't have is an independent third party to sit with the town council, answer those questions for us, so that we can make the decision. So again, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that this is a yes or no. I'm not offering anything there. I'm just saying there's information that we don't have, and that's kind of where we are with this. So. And if I'm misrepresenting anyone on the council, I know many of you have shared those similar concerns. Like if I'm misrepresenting one, please let me know. But that's kind of where I am for that reason.
I just think to draw this all back, remember, our job with this vote is pulled straight from this ordinance. After due consideration, the town has determined that CWW, Citizens Wastewater, is the utility best situated to provide economical, efficient, and adequate wastewater utility service within the entire CTA area. That's our decision. And I think that's what I need more information in order to determine whether Citizens is best situated. I certainly think that they may be, right? But that's our determination at the end of the day. Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue ordinance 2025-27 to the next meeting.
Second.
Got a first from Counselor Norris, a second from Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next on the agenda, first item of new business is the consideration of a resolution regarding the appropriation of additional funds. This is Resolution 2025-17. We have Cindy Poor, Director of Finance and Records, here with us this morning. Before, I guess, as we ask if there's any questions, I will point out this is a public hearing. Proof of publication of the public hearing. At this point, I'll open the public hearing. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any questions from Cindy or comments from counselors? We all have the narratives that have been posted. This is a resolution. I would point out again, this is the next handful of items are single vote resolutions. So,
Cindy, can I ask you some questions?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for coming up here. When I was reviewing it, I just want to make sure I'm following. When we have the additional appropriations, it's talking about, for me, it was talking about income, revenue from items. And I'm just trying to follow to make sure I see where it's going. Because with the additional appropriations, are they coming out of the general fund to go into these specific? So
Whatever fund is listed is the fund the money's coming from. So we can't do an additional appropriation from one fund and put it into another fund. So for like the engineering fees, when we bill developers to get reimbursed for what we've paid Aegis, I believe it's Aegis, then that is income to us, and we have to turn around and do an additional appropriation to replenish that line. And it's all going to happen in the general fund, because that's where the money left and came into. Yeah, and all of these additionals that are listed, it's a matter of putting revenue that was received for these specific purposes into those lines. So, for instance, the overtime line for fire, we received money in for events they've worked, et cetera. We're taking those funds that we received in, and we're replenishing that overtime line.
Okay, I was just trying to follow it because I'm thinking, okay, I got a check from the task force one. And you're just showing us, you're recording that check into your fire operating fund. You haven't put it anywhere else. It isn't.
No,
'cause that's where I was.
right,
When
it
it's
comes-
additional appropriation, I started thinking, is it coming from the general fund? Is it going into the general fund, then going into these accounts? Or you're just putting it straight in?
No, it's going, the check went into the fire operating, and now we're assigning it to the line that it was, the funds were initially paid from.
So that, I think, is where I was just getting stuck. So you have line items within that fund that you're changing it from. So that's why it's not showing a change in fund number. It's just changing a line of underneath this one? 'Cause
Right, it's going into a line underneath, within that fund that's
Yeah,
listed.
that helps me.
So it goes in, the revenue went into that fund, we're appropriating it to a line within the same fund.
that helps me. I was
Yeah.
just like, the number's not changing, so why are we voting on
Oh,
reallocating it?
right.
So, okay, so it's just, we don't see the sub lines on this
It's-
vote.
you've
It just
got
falls
the-
under the main fund.
Right, you've got the
Okay.
line item name, not the actual.
Okay, that helps
Full
me.
line.
And then on the Fund 2204 park operating, the parks part-time salary line,
Okay, so
moving
now
in.
we're on a different, this is a different resolution. You want to finish this one first?
That's fine.
Okay.
Any questions from counselors? I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-17.
Second?
A second from Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is a consideration of a resolution regarding reappropriation of funds within the 2025 budget year end. This is the Resolution 2025-18. Cindy Poor again, Director of Finance and Records.
Me again.
Okay.
The park operating, I see it
Yes.
going to specific, it sounds like repairs and improvements,
Yes.
adjustments for maybe overspends. We're just not, we didn't hire, from the budget, we didn't hire the part-time employees, or there was an allowance left in that account?
There were dollars left over, and
Okay.
so they're trying to set themselves up with these reappropriations for the beginning of the year by getting the new mower, because they're doing mowing in-house next year. Some of the repairs that need to be done in Mulberry Fields and the under the Starkey Bridge. So they're just moving some of those funds around so they can get that going.
So were these funds needed for this year's amounts, or is this encumbering them for next year?
Both. I think it's a combination. I think the vehicle repair, there are some things that are going on now. And then I think, and Jared could probably speak to this better, but two of the items that they were needing to do next year for capital items, the Starkey Bridge repair, the embankment repair, and the, I believe, water fountain at Mulberry Fields. Those items got cut. This will allow them to do those.
Okay. I just want to point out that we had tried to set up more where the items would come to us for next year when we did cut that line item. So I do see this kind of circumventing that a little bit. But, I mean, they're small items, but.
It's not really circumventing because we're still having to come to you for the dollars.
Right, no, I get that, but it's calling it this year's expense versus next year's expense. So it's just a little detail on how we're getting money into next year's budget, so. While I appreciate what needs to be done, is being done. I just want to make sure I followed that. Thank you.
Any other questions from counselors? Having none, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-18.
Second.
Second from Counselor McElderry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in
Thank
favor,
you.
0 opposed. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Up next on the, excuse me, up next on the agenda is a consideration of a resolution making a preliminary determination to issue general obligation bonds. This is for the West Side Fire Station project, Resolution 2025-19. And with us this morning, we have Chris Greisel with Barnes & Thornburg.
Good morning, Council President Plunkett, members of the council. For the record, Chris Greisel, Barnes & Thornburg. I'm here with my colleague, Max Adams, and we have the pleasure and the opportunity to serve the town as bond counsel for this transaction and the next several transactions that are going to be proposed before you here this morning. We previously provided a memo to the council on these proposed financings, and if it's all right with you, I'm just going to highlight the overview of that memo, talk about the proposed project, the prospective procurement of those projects, and the financing timeline that's before you. The team that we've been working with throughout the fall, Chief Van Gorder, Town Administration, Tim Berry with Crow, your municipal advisor. So all of us are here today to answer any questions that you may have. As this council's aware, the Zionsville Fire Department contracts with the Perry Township Fire Department to provide fire and emergency services to its designated area. Chief Van Gorder heard from Perry Township that they're going to end those services in 2026, and therefore the department has a need to provide its own station and resources for the service territory, which this newly proposed Fire Station 295 will provide. The town has previously secured property that's located at 3302 East 550 South, which is immediately west of the intersection of County Road 550 South and 267. The project includes site development and the construction of an approximately 21,000 square foot fire station that includes 5 apparatus pass-through bays, a commercial-grade kitchen facility, living and office space for firefighters, tool storage and maintenance areas, exercise and fitness areas, and a gear room. We'll discuss this in a little bit more detail, but the town's proposing to issue general obligation bonds with an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $8,650,000 to finance the project. With respect to the project's procurement, on November 14th, the town issued a request for proposals and qualifications to prospective entities interested in designing and constructing and developing the project. RFPQ responses came in this past Friday, and Chief just told me this morning that he received 9 responses. So we got a healthy response and interest on the proposal. The town's going to review those responses with its designated committee. I think some of you may be on that designated committee as well. They'll conduct any interviews that they believe are necessary, and ultimately the process is designed for the town to enter into a scoping agreement with a prospective entity that they think is reasonably susceptible of entering into a build, operate, transfer agreement with the town. Those scoping agreement services will provide pre-construction and design services necessary to produce a guaranteed maximum price for the town. That's the important part of this process, a GMP that will provide that the project's development, design, and construction will come in under that number. So those are the services that are necessary. The cost to complete those pre-construction or design services will ultimately get rolled into the financing for the project, or if the town decides to walk away, then it'll be the town's responsibility to pay those independently of any financing. We're tentatively estimating right now, based on our schedules, a February-March timeframe. We'll be back before this council to recommend a BOT entity for the fire station project and to complete that, which will coincide with our financing timeline as well. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Please.
Can you explain that process? You said you'll come before this council for approval of the BOT?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So under the BOT statutes, this town council will have the authority to approve the agreement ultimately for the BOT. We'll have a scoping agreement that will probably be before you as well, which will be that first step in completing those pre-construction services. But ultimately, under the statute, we have to conduct a public hearing and final award recommendation before you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. With respect to the proposed financing, as I mentioned before, general obligation bonds not to exceed $8,650,000. Certainly, Crow is here to answer any of these questions in more detail, but when we look at capital projects that we finance through property tax, we have 2 main considerations that we look at. First of all, number one, does the town have sufficient debt capacity to issue the bond? And number 2, whether the project's considered a controlled project under Indiana law, which may subject you to mandatory petition, remonstrance, or referendum. First, the town has sufficient capacity to issue these general obligation bonds, not only for this fire station project, but also for the DPW campus project that we'll talk about here in a minute. For pay year 2026, the town's general obligation issuance margin's about $33 million. You have approximately $8.2 million in outstanding obligations. So in other words, you have about $24.8 million of issuance capacity. So we can check that box. With respect to a controlled project, the definitions recently amended over the last 18 months or so, where we look at both the par amount of the bond and the combined debt service tax rate. For 2026, that par threshold amount for a controlled project is just a little over $6.8 million, and that's a number that's established by the DLGF. The combined tax rate for a mandatory petition remonstrance process is anything between 1/4 and 40 cents per $100 of assessed value. So with respect to this proposed financing at $8,650,000, you're over the controlled project par amount, but you're well under the debt service threshold, where right now you're at about 3.5 cents per $100. So therefore, the project's considered a controlled project, but it's not subject to the mandatory petition remonstrance process. So what does that mean for this proposed financing? So this morning, we're asking you to adopt a preliminary resolution. It's the first step in a long financing process where we'll be before this council on multiple occasions, establishing the maximum aggregate principal amount of the bond, the maximum interest rate, and the term of the bond. Following our meeting today and pending your approval, we'll then publish notice of a preliminary determination public hearing. So under Indiana law, because these bonds are being issued to finance a controlled project, the town cannot issue a bond ordinance without going through the preliminary determination process. So these public hearings, which will take place in January and February, pending your approval, will allow us to go into further detailed information about the proposed financing. At the conclusion of those meetings, the town will be asked to adopt a preliminary determination resolution, and you have to complete that process before then issuing the bond ordinance process, which you're probably familiar with. So we'll go through that preliminary determination process in January, February, come back for the bond ordinance probably in February, March, which will then coincide with our BOT approval process at the same time. So I know that's a lot of information to take in. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And like I said, our team is here as well to answer any of those questions.
Thank you, Brad. Questions from counselors?
I just have a very simple one. How do you land on the $8,650,000? Just so that I have, for the public and for the council, how do you come up with that number?
So right now, the goal of providing proceeds to the town is an $8 million project fund for the construction of this financing. We also have capitalized interest and other financing costs that are built into the financing. So we back in the number of trying to land on those ultimate project proceeds.
And if the project does exceed that amount, then what happens?
Then we'll have to make either cost reductions to the project or we'll have to find additional funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My question was, with these two bonds, just doing the math, we are creeping up on our bond limitation, right? For the 24 million, if we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you have capacity.
So we're making
to issue.
decisions that are definitely limiting future, I mean, I think they're well thought out decisions, but I'm just pointing that out, that we are creeping up onto our limitation, so.
Yeah. So that's a great point, Councilwoman. You do have, with these two projects, you will be probably at or near your debt issuing capacity. You'll have other debt that may roll off here in a few years. So from a financing perspective, if we were going to look at doing a third project, we'd probably be looking at a lease financing structure that wouldn't take on your general obligation debt in the future.
If I may, personally, as I sit here, I can't think of two more necessary projects right now than a new DPW center for Lance and Brad and their team, and then, of course, the Fire Station 295. I don't know if this council saw, but I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a pretty significant fire out in Fayette on the west side of Zionsville. I'm sure there were probably, 2-3 tanker trucks out there, at least. You learn anything as we have through the fire department work that we've all done, that tanker trucks, rural fires are some of the most costly and timely to do because of that. So, yeah, full support. I can't think of anything else better to issue our debt towards.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to infer that I'm not supporting this. I just need us to be aware of our limitation.
Yeah, and I wasn't insinuating that at all.
Yeah, that we can't immediately build the next fire station or take on huge roundabout. Or I guess would that be a different way that we would fund? So, okay, maybe that's not.
So just briefly, of course, I agree with Councilor Norris's, opinion that, yes, we need these, especially this one out in my district, Perry Township. Super important with the Perry Township Volunteer Fire Department sunsetting. However, I guess I still have concerns with the BOT process, and as I did some research, I looked at some of the shortfalls with the BOT, with governmental policy changes, different councils coming in and out, transfer disputes, long-term inflexibility, hidden costs, poorly designed contracts, and compliance and legal risks. And to me, kind of what I looked into with this is that, so I just want to be clear, you're not asking us to approve the BOT, or are you, right?
I'm not asking you to approve it today.
That'll come later.
That'll come later.
However, with this approval, it sets the bar with, hey, this is $8 million project. Now everybody knows, right?
Yeah, your approval today is locking in those maximum aggregate principal amounts to start the process.
And $8 million is a lot of money, but it seems like BOT should be, held for more of those large-scale projects, jails, water treatment plants, and things of that nature, as opposed to a fire station. One of the things that we talked about initially when we started this was that this fire station did not need to be a huge project for Perry Township based on the development out there, the need at this point for Perry Township. So I'm just a little concerned as we move forward with this approval, and then we go into the BOT. This is our cards. This is our number. I'm also a little leery as we look at the things going on in the rest of the county with overages on other projects that we're using and utilizing the BOT process. So I just want to relay that and get that out publicly as we move forward, because I do have some concerns as we move forward, and I know you're going to present some other bonding as well. But I just have concerns. I don't know.
Did you think that there would be a better way of going with bid build?
I guess as I did my research, the BOT transfer is utilized generally for somebody that's actually going to operate, and somebody that's it's a little bit more intricate of a system.
Right.
Is my understanding. A jail.
So,
go ahead, Evan. Counselor.
If I can, BOT is becoming, I mean, Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong, but BOT is the kind of the Wild West, right? And it's something that people are now, municipalities across the state are kind of adopting and kind of getting used to. So I understand that there's probably going to be some heartburn associated with this kind of new approach. Chris, my question following up on Councilor Melton's comments, 8.6 is a GMP, right? So guaranteed
all
maximum
in, hard
price.
and soft cost.
And how was that number achieved? Through engineering, through scoping, or?
That's correct.
So I understand the concerns about not putting this out for public bid, and heck, we may get bids that are $10 million over that 8.6 number. We may get some that are below that, but can you talk about how
Sure.
we came up with the 8.6 so
Absolutely.
that this council feels comfortable
Yeah,
with that?
absolutely. And to answer your question, I think those are fair concerns, particularly in a community that hasn't done a lot of BOT. I can tell you, I represent several municipalities across the state, and to Councilor Norris's comment, BOT is kind of the preferred method, right, wrong, or indifferent right now. So I have a little bit more confidence in the process, mainly because we're shifting the risk to the developer, and the process of establishing that GMP number that Councilor Norris was getting at is something that we're very transparent about. So the bid responses that Chief Van Gorder got on Friday, 9 of them, in our RFPQ, we are very transparent in that $8 million is our maximum project budget. And so everybody that is responding right now understands that they have a higher end goal that they have to meet. Through the scoping process, the design and development of that project, we're working towards producing a GMP that is at or below $8 million. And every prospective entity that's out there has to know that. And if they come back through this collaborative process and say, hey, look, I just don't think we can get it done for $8 million, then you're going to have scope changes and different things to consider as a town to make sure that we know our upper end is $8 million, right? So through that collaborative process of entering into that scoping agreement, everybody will know what that end goal is. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it helps answer mine. And then just to assuage any concerns, the operate period, I understand that. I mean, that's probably the most difficult part of understanding how does that look under any particular BOT, right? Is that 1 week? Is that 30 days? Is that 2 years? Is that 5 years? Like, so can you just kind of help explain the operate, what that means?
Yeah, it is dependent upon every community and every project. So your jail comment is a perfect example of maybe a full-scale operation. We do a lot of garages under a BOT as well, where you might have a full-time operator who will come in and operate the transaction for longer than the period of constructing the project. On others like this, you're probably aligning an operation period that's very tight with closing, generally maybe after substantial completion to the final completion to make sure that the warranties are in line for all the project completion. So it's more or less a paper transaction on the operating side. You're really aligning design, development, and construction with one responsible entity. So the town doesn't have to hold 6 contracts, various subcontracts. We're holding one BOT agreement that tells the developer for $8 million, this is what they're building on time and under budget.
It just seems like maybe you were looking for, if we did the bid build, that we could have a shot at a lower pricing. Is that me
Well,
hearing you right?
I guess it's not that, it's not exactly that. It's, I think the open bidding is really a part of what makes government, more transparent. So, however, also in that process, sometimes we can have shortfalls on the contractors. And as a contractor myself, I do understand how that can happen. And I also understand that if I come to a project and there's no, if the budget price is unobtainable, essentially on the contractee side, like if the expectation is not set properly, you can't do the project. And I think this sets the expectation that this is kind of where we want to, this is our budget. So I see value in that. I do understand that. I think the operate transfer, again, whether it's a week or a month or whatever, I think, in my opinion, these are specifically geared towards more complicated projects rather than just building a structure like a fire department, which is nowadays obviously has a lot more technicalities to them. And I'm appreciative and understanding of that, as I've seen some great, I've walked through several fire departments here recently to kind of understand this as well. So it's not just the price. I think it's just getting the best value for the town of Zionsville residents. That's ultimately the goal. Obviously, fire protection, getting it there as quickly as possible. That's why I am planning to vote for this today. I just want to make sure it's the right thing. Like I said, as we've seen here recently with other BOT transfers locally, there are issues. And this one's not a complicated one, and it shouldn't be. So I think with 9 bids, we can probably find a pretty good contractor out of that. Not all of these that we're going to move forward with are going to have 9 bids or nine interested parties. So I think really just making sure that this new process that is being utilized, I just want to make sure we're making the right decision to utilize this for these 3 next large-scale projects that are coming up. But I think that will help divide also and divide the time of the staff to be able to allow these projects to kind of go at the same time. So that's mainly my concern. And with that, like I said, I kind of told you how I'd like to vote. So when you're ready for a vote, I'll let you know.
Yeah, are there any questions from council for Mr. Greisel?
I just had one BOT process question, because you mentioned something. Obviously, with this, what you're doing is you're putting up your budget up front, and then the bids, are coming in hopefully under budget. If for some reason you mentioned, if they end up over budget, if they end up over the 8.6, is that possible? Is it possible for them to be over budget, or that's not possible? And if not, my question would be, someone bids this, what's the quality control process to make sure, because, I've seen too many things with other things, including residences, where, quality is not what it wants to be to come in under budget. How do we make sure we're getting the 8.6? You can come in under budget, also means you're coming in under quality. What's the quality control?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So a lot of that, I think, is going to be dependent on the scoping process that's been mentioned before, because ultimately we want to do everything that we believe we can for $8 million. May not be able to do that. We might get some reality through this process, just like we do in every other scoping process, that the scope of the project is off. And I think what you're going to have with the right developer, with the right team that you select, is very open, honest, transparent conversations about that. And so Chief Van Gorder and his team are going to have to go back to the drawing board, perhaps. Hopefully it's not the case, but they're going to have to go back to the drawing board on some of the scope matters. And I think nobody understanding a GMP and what they have to deliver, I think the other benefit to you in this process is that developers are not willing to shortchange to get something under budget if they know they can't reasonably do it. There's not a lot of change orders that happen. It's part of the simplicity of the BOT process, because the GMP is the GMP unless something catastrophic goes on and we come back and say we've got to do something different. It's not unlike the design bid build project where you are susceptible to those change orders. So I think through the process, you're going to find out that rubber's going to meet the road really quickly, and we're going to have to make a decision before we lock into that GMP route. Not that you're getting, a subsea fire station at $8 million. You're getting a fire station at $8 million. It may just not have all the bells and whistles that Chief Van Gorder wants at this time point. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Who specifically is kind of managing the quality, though, within the construction? Is that, obviously, whoever takes the contract, but what's the third party?
Yeah, we don't have a construction manager that's lined up for this process yet at this point in time. We could. It's a contemplation for the town. It's an additional cost. If Chief Van Gorder thinks he needs that resource, then we could potentially have that. But I think at this point in time, Chief and his team believe that they can have enough oversight into the process to understand what they need or what they don't need.
Okay, but he's given me a nod, so.
I think he was the project manager for this building.
Who?
Chief Van Gorder was the project manager for this building. So I take it that he can build this one.
He can build that one?
He can build that one.
No, just a question. Because I'm
Yeah,
just trying
great
to follow
question.
it.
Absolutely.
Great. No, yeah,
Great question.
it's the number one biggest consideration. I think for all these reasons that we're laying out, the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, right, is the ticket that we want. And we want to make sure, because like Chris said, absent something catastrophic, the contractor can't come back and say, unless there's something totally that was undiscoverable, and there's a lot of legal precedence on how you can tap into above the GMP sets that price, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great questions. Chris, I just want, for the public, in our packet, this assumed the council adopts resolution recommending project financing, including reimbursement language, on Monday, December 1st. We did not have that meeting, so that's happening today.
Yep.
Which means the December 15th council meeting actually moves to January. Since we don't have a mid-January meeting, the second preliminary determination public hearing would happen in likely February. And then the February 2nd listed on here, town council holds additional appropriation public hearing. Following public hearing, adopting bonds, additional appropriation ordinance would be in March. And at the earliest, the last public hearing regarding the BOT awards and adopting the resolution approving the BOT would be either the second public meeting in March or first public meeting in April.
I believe that's all correct. And we have an updated timetable, President Plunkett, that will
Yeah.
circulate to the council to adjust for the meeting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that it's important for the council to know that too. Like this is, I mentioned this, I sometimes misspeak and mention this is a one-vote resolution. This resolution is not locking us into that. It's starting the process that could be potentially 90 to 120 days long.
That's correct.
So, okay. With plenty of opportunity for public input and engagement.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Greisel? Having none, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-19, preliminary bond resolution.
I have a first from Counselor Melton, a second from Counselor Norris. So those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is a consideration of a resolution making a preliminary determination to issue general obligation bonds for DPW campus project. This is Resolution 2025-20. Again, Chris Greisel with Barnes & Thornburg.
Thank you, President Plunkett, members of the council. Again, for the record, Chris Greisel, Barnes & Thornburg, with my colleague Max Adams here to present on the DPW campus project. Similar to the fire station, I'll provide an overview of the project, the procurement, and the proposed financing. The DPW operations facilities plan to be developed at or near 4140 South 875 East. For reference, this parcel is immediately north and east of Trailside Elementary School. The facility will house approximately 18 employees, as well as the equipment, vehicles, and supplies, primarily of the streets and stormwater division of DPW, all of which are currently housed at the municipal service building. The project will include approximately 4,300 square foot office building, 30,000 square foot heated vehicle garage, a cold storage barn, salt storage barn, outdoor bulk material storage, and outdoor equipment. As we'll discuss here in further detail, the town is proposing to issue general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $14,745,000 to complete this project. With respect to the project's procurement, the RFPQ for this project was issued on November 18th. Responses came in this past Friday, I believe. Is that correct, Lance? Yeah. You had 11 responded? All right, very good. So town received responses on Friday with 11 responses, which is another healthy bid response. Similar to the fire station, ultimately, we'll work through the process with our designated committee to present a entity for a scoping agreement for somebody who's reasonably susceptible of winning the BOT agreement. And ultimately, again, that scoping agreement will drive towards establishing a GMP price through the design, development, and pre-construction services. Similar to the fire station, we're tentatively set to review that BOT probably in the February-March timeframe before this council. With respect to the proposed financing, again, we're proposing to issue general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $14,745,000 to finance the project. We undertook the same general considerations that we did for the fire station with respect to your capacity and with the controlled project statute, and came out with the same result, which is this is a controlled project, but it does not meet your mandatory petition remonstrance process. And so we're going to follow the same process that we're doing for the fire station. A little nuance of this financing, as you all are very well aware, that through the town's various reorganization plans, DPW does not provide service to rural Zionsville. And so the implication means that the adjusted tax to support this financing will only apply to the urban Zionsville districts, not to both the rural and the urban, which the fire station will provide. This will only go to your urban districts. So this morning, we're asking you to adopt a resolution to approve the maximum amounts, maximum aggregate principal amount, maximum interest rate and term for the bonds. Again, under Indiana law, because these bonds are being issued to finance a controlled project, the town may not impose those property taxes or take up the bond ordinance before entering into the preliminary determination public hearings, which we'll have 2 of, before considering a preliminary determination resolution. So as President Plunkett alluded to, we'll have those lined up now at the January and February town council meetings prior to considering a bond ordinance right after that. And at those public hearings, we'll be providing, and Crow will be providing significant financial details about the proposed financing and what that means for your various tax rates. All again with the goal of trying to produce proceeds sometime in March or early April for the completion of this project. So a lot of information on all those aspects, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the project, the procurement, or the proposed financing.
Just to clarify that the bond terms, in terms of cost and dollars and all that's all included, and I know Crow will be involved, but that all is presented to us during the bond ordinance?
So you'll see all of that information come out in the preliminary determination public hearings as well, in terms of the effect on the tax rate and,
Right.
and what it looks like today versus tomorrow after the issuance.
Correct. Just making sure folks following along
Yep.
know that those numbers are going to be shared. Thank you.
Welcome.
Probably should have asked this on the last one, but it's kind of overarching. How is the general obligation issuance margin determined? I mean, we're at 33 million. How's that, I mean, is that?
Yeah, great question. So it is a pretty archaic formula under Indiana law, which is 1/3 of 2% of your net assessed value.
Okay.
The town has a debt issuance capacity. Your redevelopment commission has the same debt issuance capacity, and parks has a debt issuance capacity of that. So you take 2% of 1/3 of your net assessed value, and then which equates to roughly $33 million for you for pay 26. And then you look at your outstanding debt obligations, which you have, subtract it out of that, and that's your issuance margin.
Okay, so it can change if our assessed value changes, right?
Yes, sir.
And to Sarah's point, after these 2 are approved, we have like $1 million available, $1 to $2 million, and then 8 that could roll off, right, over time?
That's correct.
Okay. Again, not suggesting we don't. I'm just making that known, so we're gonna be handcuffed for a little while.
Well, yeah, we've got other sources of revenue, of course,
True.
as well, too.
And there are other financing options. We don't have to get into it here, but
Right,
we
right.
do have lease financing options that generally get away from that concern of your debt capacity limitations if and when we need it.
And we have several projects around town that have been approved over the last couple of years that are going to come on with our tax base and our assessed value that will help pay for some of this ultimately. Well, I'll tell you, this is a project that, again, BOT set aside. This is definitely a project that also is in dire need, I believe. Lance and his department have worked out of closets and corners and crevices of this old building for many years, and I'm glad that we can give our Department of Public Works, our street department, ample space to grow and expand and accommodate the town's some new streets, but streets and all the things that they do to help our everyday activity just move along. So I'm excited to see us moving in the direction for the next 20 and 30 and maybe, I don't know, 40 years for a project like this.
I'm not sure the public always knows the definition between rural and urban districts. Would you care to share that just so for public record?
It's an interesting question. That you have several rural districts that have been established through your various reorganizations over time. Primarily in those reorganization plans, you have certain services that are not provided to those rural districts, DPW being one of them. I believe a highway and police are the other. And so because of those distinctions when they were made at that time, the full tax rate that you would apply to your urban district for all of those services aren't provided to your rural district. There's maps that we can certainly provide as well to kind of highlight those two, but those are, in general,
People
the two
should know
primary
whether they're
differences.
receiving those services or not, but
Yes.
just wanted to make sure people understood that.
Yeah, great question.
Any other questions for Mr. Greisel? I would point out that I think this was first brought to the town council 3 administrations ago. The first time I saw this, and I remember vividly sitting in Lance's office asking for Plan B on the proposal, and this is essentially Plan B, and I'm glad to see it finally coming to fruition. Wish we could have done it back then, so. Questions from councilors? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-20.
Second.
I have a first from Counselor Norris, a second from Counselor McElderry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is a consideration of a resolution recommending certain capital projects and the issuance of sewage works revenue bonds 2026 sewer project. This is Resolution 2025-21. Chris Greisel again.
Thank you. President Plunkett, members of the council, for the record, Chris Greisel, Barnes and Thornburg, with my colleague Max Adams here to present to you the first step in consideration of our sewage project and our sewage works revenue bonds that associated with it. Again, I'm here with our project team, Lance, George Lewis, Danny Stogsdill, Town Administration, and your municipal advisor, Tim Berry with Crow. Similar to our previous projects, I'll go over the proposed project, the proposed procurement, and the proposed financing that we have before you. The proposed sewer improvement project generally consists of multiple components, including the replacement of pumps at the main lift station, upgrades to the Boone Village lift station, new headworks at the treatment plant, a belt filter press replacement, process instrumentation, new non-potable water pump station, and electrical and SCADA upgrades. The town's maximum budget for completing this project is $9,600,000. However, a portion of that budget is going to be made up of cash and availability fees on hand. So the town, with that, is proposing to issue sewage works revenue bonds in a maximum aggregate principal amount not to exceed $7,030,000. So the delta of that, of course, being made up with the cash on hand and the availability fees to meet with those sewage works revenue bonds. With respect to the project's procurement, on November 10th, the town issued RFPQs to prospective entities interested in designing, developing, and constructing the project pursuant to a BOT agreement. Responses came in on December 5th, and the town is reviewing those with its designated committee, again, ultimately with the goal of entering into a scoping agreement with a prospective entity that could be reasonably susceptible of winning that BOT award. And so the town will be working through that process, gearing towards that GMP. We are tentatively estimating a January, February BOT timeline for this process. It's a little bit more streamlined than the fire station and DPW one, but that's a tentative timeframe right now. With respect to the project's financing, all the information that we talked about on these last two projects with general obligation bonds, you can just kind of put that to the side right now. These are Sewage Works revenue bonds. And in general, Sewage Works revenue bonds are payable solely from the revenues of the Sewage Works for which they are issued, and they're not in corporate indebtedness of the town. So the proposed project before you this morning was previously taken into consideration during your previous rate increases for the sewer. So in other words, the financing for the sewer project's already been incorporated into the rate base, and therefore you don't have to raise rates of your sewer in order to accomplish this financing. For your consideration this morning, we have a preliminary bond resolution which recommends the project and the corresponding revenue bonds to support it. After this morning, we're tentatively scheduled to consider the adoption of a bond ordinance at your January and February council meetings. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and the team's here to answer any questions as well.
How many bid responses did we get on this one? 5? So this is one that I've gotten pushback from District 4 with constituents asking if research has been done into the smell of the area, the capacity limitations. I think we're all aware of the WIBC report with our remonstrator who spoke today. How do I answer all these questions saying that I approve the Sewage Works revenue bonds? Like, I am following, I mean, this is probably a little bit more of a Lance question, but I need some input into the vote that I'm making for you. How do I make sure that there are improvements for my constituents in regards to this upgrade and the necessity of the capacity review and the commentary from Mr. Collins? I saw in the readings that I had that it said that the smell, gosh, I'm gonna have to dig to find this question, was not in the budget part of this, the future addition of an odor control unit. Could we put the odor control unit into this project? I mean, I have received multiple emails and requests regarding the smell. So if we're doing a project, could we add that component into the project? And does that bump this out of our cost projection by some unattainable amount? So that's why I said it's probably Lance, sorry. And Brad and George and anyone else who wants to come up. Oh, not Brad.
And I think, real quick, Lance, before you jump in there, I would just point out, certainly understand Counselor Sampson's concerns in the emails and even the presentation this morning and the public speaking. We received an email from the mayor on Friday stating that the facility is in full compliance with IDEM regulations. Operations are verified through quarterly inspections and monthly reporting to the state. Plant is operating below capacity, and equipment upgrades are underway to ensure continued efficiency and safety in the future. I'm assuming these are part of these equipment upgrades as well.
Yes, I'm going to start off by acknowledging I am not the expert in the room on wastewater, but we do have our operator Danny Stogsdill, who is certified to run our plant, as well as plants of more sophistication, and our town engineer, George Lewis. Prior to him joining our team a few years ago, he actually designed these projects in the private sector, including Trico's most recent capacity expansion. So we're very fortunate to have that type of talent on our team. As far as the capacity of the plant going, some of you may remember from 2023-ish, maybe 2022, when we had American Structure Point come in and do a capacity analysis of the plant. I put that together in a presentation, and at the time then we were determined to be about 55% of our dry weather capacity at that time. Then we subsequently had Commonwealth come in and validate that study a couple years later. Commonwealth was also the firm that did the 2011 sewer master plan, and they determined too that we were in that 55% hydraulic capacity rate. So as far as odor controls, if you'll think back to the presentation you saw about a year ago this time, that laid out a two-phased improvement process. The first phase being a process improvement, and that's what's before you today. This is not an added capacity in treatment at the plant. This is process improvements, and this is where we start to get at the odors. This is an entirely new headworks building. So this is where the headworks is where that effluent first comes into the plant, all right? And the management from that point forward is where you're going to get your best odor control opportunities. So we are modernizing with a completely new headworks part of this initial project. So it's with high confidence that what odors may be being experienced would actually be improved by this project. So if you want more details at this point, I'd have to turn it over to the two experts in the room.
And I do remember your presentation, and I do appreciate you coming up to the microphone. There's just been enough pushback in the past couple of weeks with regards to all things utility and sewage that I wanted to make sure that we don't act like we're ignoring people, but they might need a confidence level of hearing you say that we do have the 55% at capacity, and are we projecting into future growth? And I think it needs to be stated that most of the growth that would come in the projected decade would be outside of this wastewater treatment plants usage. It would, that I think people see the growth coming in the north, and it gives them legs to worrying about our wastewater treatment plant, and it just needs to be said, that's not what would be feeding into this wastewater treatment plant.
That's largely correct. So using a population-based projection is reasonable, right? A lot of times that's all you have is how rapidly people are going to move into our community. But where they move into our community becomes more important. Currently, our customer base count is estimated about a little over 15,000 individuals that are served by our current plant. So yes, we are at capacity, or excuse me, we have capacity. Both the American Structure Point and subsequently the Commonwealth Engineering studies forecast us to become a 2.5 million gallon per day plant. And in fact, the most recent Commonwealth study from 2023, I believe, said that with these first process improvements, we have another good 10 to 12 years of operation at the 2 MGD level at which we are currently. However, if you remember from the presentation, within that, well before that 10-year horizon-ish, that 10 to 12-year horizon, we would move into phase 2, which would give us that last 500,000 gallon per day capacity. That was what was projected to be needed for our entire sewer service territory when completely developed. So a lot of these people who've moved into town are served by Whitestown sewers, they're served by Trico sewers, and there's a lot still on well and septic as well.
Okay, thank you. It points back to how the other item that we have tabled for a later meeting is maybe why that's so important on considering for the expansions of neighborhoods and capacity up there. And I think some people have convoluted the two to being your situation, and the only part that I just wanted to address was that it said in our packet about the odor control not necessarily being addressed specifically in this phase, but through process improvement, it should address some of the odors, is what I heard you say.
That's correct.
Okay, and I think that's important to point out to all the people who are writing me, that the money that we are spending will take care of some of the concerns. It's just not, it's more of a second part of it that could happen versus directly assessing that problem and putting in an odor control unit. We're trying to improve the process to
Correct.
control the odors. Thank you.
Lance, you mentioned phase 1, phase 2, this is phase 1. If we're bonding this out, or how far down the road is the phase 2?
The original plan put it about 5 years behind,
from
behind
this-
phase 1.
Okay.
Right, and then on that funding horizon, it got a little murky. Based, if nothing really changes and we have a very limited growth and limited revenue experience, we'd about to be about $1 million short. However, as part of that presentation, we had committed to revisiting the sewer rate more frequently than every 15 years. So now in about 3 years, we'll be looking at updating our sewer rate study, and that will give us a more accurate financial picture. We have a lot of cash on hand at the utility, so we've got about this $1 million delta on the 5-ish, 6-year horizon that we will either have to make up in availability fees, additional revenue, or figure it out when we get there.
The availability fees comes from construction? or-
Every new connection to the system
New
pays an
connection,
pays an
okay.
availability fee, yes.
Lance, I feel like I should know this, so maybe you can tell me. IDEM or IURC, who regulates us?
IDEM is the regulatory authority for us. They're the permitting, they're the performance management body.
Okay, thank you.
They're more regional in the sewer regulation. They do more of the regional sewer. At least that's what I've been reading.
Any other questions for Chris or Lance?
Lance, just a question. On occasion, this council moves residents from a rural to an urban designation. I think a lot of that has to do with police coverage and things like that. Is there ever a change in sewage service when we move from a rural to an urban neighborhood?
No, sewer service territories are largely independent from the transition from a rural to an urban tax rate. So, you know, again, with 2 other providers in corporate Zionsville, 2 to 3 other providers, it really is separate from, because this is a utility rate, this is not a property tax issue, so.
Okay.
Anything else for Lance or Chris? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-21.
Second.
A second from Counselor Melton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you very much. Up next on the agenda is other matters. I just briefly want to, I know the mayor's going to do something this evening at the Plan Commission meeting, but I just want to thank Dave Frantz, been a town council and mayor appointment to the Plan Commission for over 14 years. Certainly going to lose a lot of experience and education with that position. So appreciate Dave's service to the town. I also just want to thank the DPW, police and fire, everybody associated with the town over the last few days especially. It's been incredibly cold. A lot of good work to clear the roads and make sure everything in this town runs appropriately and certainly impacting the safety of our residents. So just want to thank all those folks and wish everybody Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So, Merry Christmas. Anything else from counselors?
Well, and a happy Hanukkah for those who celebrate.
There you go. All right, at this point, I will make a motion to adjourn. A second from Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Zionsville Town Hall Council Chambers. Final notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana open door law. Thank you.